on the road of Mike Lee, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, I think you have new life and you actually will do it. But the GOP is fighting all the way. 35 years ago, Thad Cochran became a senator in Mississippi 35 years ago. The guy who's now running against him, I think, was 7 when Thad first won and went to Washington. Am I right?
He was
7?
6.
I was 6 years old. Sorry. Didn't need to give him an extra year.
Yeah.
He is now running against Thad Cochran. His name is Chris McDaniel. Freedom Works does not hand out endorsements higgledy-piggledy, and they have...
or helter-skelter.
They haven't.
Mm-mm.
And this is another race that I think could actually be won by one of our guys, and somebody who believes in the Constitution. I want you to meet him now. Mississippi State Senator Chris McDaniel. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Glenn. Thanks for having me. It's an honor. I'm a big fan.
Thank you very much. You're running. Tell me the difference between you and the other Republican.
Well, in short, first and foremost, I value the Constitution, and I value liberty. And just to set the record straight, Senator Cochran's actually been in Washington for 41 years.
Holy cow.
Oh. Yeah, 41 years.
Has he really?
A representative prior to being elected to the Senate. So 41 years.
So your entire life, the guy's been in some sort of elected office.
That's correct. More than 4 decades.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
And the primary difference is that I'm a liberty-based conservative. I'm a Jeffersonian at heart, a Reaganite. Senator Cochran, on the other hand, is not. He's been more inclined to be a statist his entire life.
Give me some specifics, because honestly, John McCain says he's a Reagan revolutionary too.
Oh.
So give me some specifics. What are the things that you see that Cochran is doing that you say, this is an abomination, it's got to stop right now?
A handful of things, very simply. First and foremost, this is one of the guys that voted to bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Over the last 13 years, he's voted to increase the debt ceiling 11 times for more than $7.2 trillion. He's voted for higher income taxes, higher gas taxes, higher internet taxes, and even President Bush Sr.'s tax increase. If you can imagine the vote, Glenn, Senator Cochran has voted against the conservative cause. He even voted for taxpayer-funded abortions, and that's something in Mississippi that's almost unheard of.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me take the hardest one there that I think you talked about, the debt ceiling.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You're now dealing with, I believe, a group of people that win either way. I've never seen a president ever try to talk Wall Street down. And when the Republicans were filibustering and they were talking about the debt ceiling, what happened was this president came out and went on CNBC and Bloomberg and said, if I were on Wall Street, I'd be very concerned because I think these guys are fiscally irresponsible. So you've got a situation where you've got a gun to your head and nobody is going to, he wants it to, I really truly believe he wants you to do that. So how do you get around that?
Well, we have to begin to ask ourselves some serious questions. The better question, I think, is what happens if we do not start making difficult decisions and doing the right thing? The Republican Party is not standing with courage. It's not standing with principle. The party I joined was a party of liberty, a party of constitutional restoration, a party of fiscal restraint. We haven't been that party in an awfully long time. And so how do you do it? You stand with people like Ted Cruz. You stand with people like Mike Lee and Rand Paul. You stand and you fight the good fight, and in so doing, you convince the people that the right decision is always the decision that benefits the future and benefits liberty.
Who is a person that you look at in the Senate now that you say, that's me, I'm there?
Oh, goodness. Philosophically speaking, I'm a big fan of Mike Lee, naturally a big fan of Ted Cruz and Rand Paul. Those 3 guys have inspired me, if for no other reason than their ability to take a stand during difficult circumstances. They fight with courage. They have a strong soul, a strong spirit, and that's inspirational to people in Mississippi, especially me.
All right, you brought it up, so I'm going to go down there. You brought up the word soul. How's your soul?
My soul, first and foremost, is saved by the grace of God.
I know a lot of people who have been saved, and they're despicable people.
Absolutely, they are. But you're exactly right. But secondly, it's strong, it's resolved, it's going to fight with courage, And I'm not going to be co-opted by the insiders or by the Washington lobbyists. That's not who I am. That's not who I've ever been. I've taken my stand in the Mississippi Senate against Haley Barbour on eminent domain.
Tell me about that.
Oh, goodness. It was back during post-Kelo, as you can imagine, and I am a huge supporter in private property rights. The Constitution is the most important document our country has, naturally, and so we were fighting to reform our eminent domain laws in the post-Kelo setting, which basically would have allowed government to take property from an individual and give it to someone else in the event they could use it better in the eyes of the government, for tax generation revenues, for example. Governor Barbour was not in favor of reform. I was. We have to protect private property owners. And so we had a fight on the floor, naturally, and he did whatever he could to push his bill. I did what I could to push the reform bill, and we won on the floor. He then vetoed our bill, and so naturally we attempted to override his veto on the Senate floor, and we failed just by a handful of votes. But the bottom line was we fought for principle, and we fought for courage, and guess what? Shortly thereafter, we were able to amend the Constitution, and we were able to protect private property owners in Mississippi. So by standing on principle, by fighting, by defending the Constitution, we eventually won the day.
Tell me about Common Core and what you think Common Core is and why it's good or bad.
Well, Common Core is a nightmare. There's a couple of reasons. First and foremost, I don't see any constitutional provision at all that gives the federal government any authority over education. Whether it's No Child Left Behind, whether it's Department of Education, or whether it's Common Core, it's simply none of their business. And frankly, Mississippians don't need the federal government intruding into our lives. Secondly, to the extent that we can't control our curriculum, to the extent that federal money is tied to the creation of a curriculum, that should be appalling to people of reasonable sensibilities. It's not the central government's responsibility to teach my children. It's my responsibility to teach my children, and then Mississippi can handle its public schools just fine. I am not a fan, if for no other reason, that I believe Common Core is an unconstitutional encroachment on the rights of the people to decide their own fate.
Okay, I want to take you down 3 topics, and we have limited time with you, so I just want to get these 3 topics out, and then the boys have some questions for you too.
Sure.
The 3 topics: Second Amendment, Obamacare, and immigration. Let's start on immigration.
Obamacare.
Start with immigration.
Immigration,
please.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very simple. Absolutely no to amnesty. Close the borders, enforce the law, and do the right thing for a change. This is not a time to surrender or compromise on the issue of immigration reform. Stand and be tough and do the right thing. And I've been fighting that fight since 2008 in Mississippi and co-authored one of my first illegal immigration measures back during that year.
Tell me about Obamacare.
Obamacare. I was the state's lead counsel in the Obamacare lawsuit. I represented the now Governor Phil Bryant and 10 Mississippians in a class action, and we fought Obamacare all the way to the Supreme Court, and I did that free of charge, pro bono, on behalf of the people, on behalf of my governor, and on the behalf of the Constitution. Very much against Obamacare. It doesn't need a Band-Aid. It doesn't need to be made more efficient. It needs to be repealed immediately. We need to put a knife through it, kill the act, kill the legislation, and move forward and allow the states and the people to begin to experiment in that arena. You are going to have a situation on your hands when you get in as a senator where people are going to say, we need to fix it, it's too late to go back, and you're also going to have people saying a single-payer system. It's not too late to go back. Our Constitution demands that we go back. The central government doesn't have any business in my health care affairs. And at the end of the day, we need to return that power back to the people and the states so they can do what they see fit. But absolutely we can go back. We owe it to our Constitution and to our people to go back.
Second Amendment?
Oh, goodness. I'm from Mississippi, Glenn. We love the Second Amendment. I'm a pro-Second Amendment guy. It represents an individual right to bear arms, not a collective right. And it's a right that I fought for my entire life in the state Senate and in other ways. I'm a big proponent of the Constitution. It means exactly what it says, and it says exactly what it means. And the Second Amendment is just as precious, if not more so, than the First and the others.
Chris, I love what you're saying here, but how do you hold your ground when John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Mitch McConnell come to you and say, Chris, here's how it works. Look, we're going to make sure you get some of your agenda done. We really are. We're going to help you with that. We'll get you on the Judiciary Committee or whatever you have your ultimate sights set on. You'll get more done that way. If you fight with us, you're going to get a lot more done than if you fight against us, because this is what happens to all these freshmen who come in. They get taken under these guys' wings. They get promised that they're going to be on the Judiciary Committee or whatever committee they want.
Yeah.
And then they have to compromise their values. How do you fight that?
My allegiance is to the Constitution and to the people, period. I don't want to go to Washington, D.C. to get invitations to the cocktail circles. I don't want to go to Washington to make friends. I'm not terribly concerned about the establishment. One of the reasons we're having the problems we have now is because the establishment hasn't done the jobs that they promised us they would do. So with all due respect to those gentlemen, I'm not there to make friends. I'm there to fight for what I believe in, and that's always been my fight.
I find it very interesting that Mike Lee had an incredible father and grandfather. Ted Cruz has an incredible father, and Rand Paul has an incredible father. They really got them from their fathers.
Yeah.
Tell me about your dad.
Glenn, I lost my father back in 1999. One of the finest, most kindest, most wonderful people I've ever known. And every day I just want to be more like him. If I can be half of what he was, if I can be half of the man he was.
What was he? What was the thing that you learned from him? What is the thing specifically that he...
Character. He always taught me to fight and to stand for what you believe in, even if it's unpopular. And he was a man of almost impeccable Christian character, a deacon in the Southern Baptist Church. I never heard him say a curse word. I never even saw him take a drink, for goodness sakes. He was just one of those kind of people. And so I grew up thinking the entire world was like my father. And then, of course, I entered the real world one day and found out that it was very disappointing. So character, a willingness to stand, to defend, a willingness to fight. And every day I think about him. Every day he whispers in my ear, and he just says, son, just do the right thing. And I do. I try. I try my very best to do the right thing, even though I'm flawed. I'm very imperfect. He walks with me, and I pray that he is pleased with me.
We're trying to do Mississippi State Senator Chris McDaniel running for Senate in Mississippi. Chris, because we tend to look at the things that you're talking about, like, hey, Thad Cochran's been in Washington for a really long time, and you know, you're going to stand up against the establishment. We tend to look at those things here on this show as positive. But what they are in the real world of getting elected is an incredible negative, and it's going to make your uphill battle a lot more uphill. How do you actually win this race?
Because the people of Mississippi, much like the people of the country, are waking up. They're waking up to the reality. It's no longer about backroom deals. It's no longer about lobbyists and Washington insiders selecting our senators. We have to just wake the people up again. If they awaken, there's nothing the American people can't accomplish. This race isn't about me. It's not about Thad Cochran. It's about a movement. And if the people wake up and they're energized and they're engaged and they're enthusiastic, which they are, you're going to see a massive change in this country. And 2014 is just the moment to make that change. And to answer your question, the people just need to be convinced. If we deliver a strong message of conservatism with bold colors, like Reagan said, not pastels, deliver that strong message, do it in an articulate manner, not through anger necessarily, but through conviction, you will see the people rise to the occasion. They are instinctively conservative. They are instinctively constitutionalists. They are instinctively men and women of freedom. They will fight for us if we'll remind them the reasons of fighting.
Okay, here's what I'd like to do, and you're the first one that I've offered this to, and I'm going to offer it to just a handful of people that are running. But what I'd like to do is, when you see a story, when you see something that is happening in the world, and you're like, this is the reason, this is wrong, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a number to our hotline, and you can call in, and when you see a news story that is happening or something that's happening, and we'll do everything we can to just put you through on the air so you can talk to us for, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and just tell us this is it. And so we can get to know you a little bit more and what you're thinking. And that way we're not setting up an interview. It's when you see something, say something.
Well, thank you very much. That would be great. I want the people to know who I am. I want them to be comfortable with me. And Glenn, if you don't mind, I would also at some point love to share my website, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's McDaniel2014.com. That's just www.McDaniel2014.com. and a large part of my biography is on there, and the bills that I've presented, and many of my beliefs are on there as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're not talking about McDaniel2014.com, are you?
Well, say it one more time so I can be clear. Say it one
If
more
I wanted to donate, it would be McDaniel2014.
Yeah, McDaniel2014.com.
All one word.
All right.
I think that's it. Could you spell it?
Chris, thanks a lot. I appreciate it, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having
God bless.
me.
You bet. There are a few people that, I was listening to him. I thought, boy, 4 years ago, we would have killed for one person that sounded like that.
Yes.
And look at how many we have now.
Really?
They're starting to come out. You just have to support them. And not everybody is going to be able to pull it off in their state. We believe this is winnable. We believe Matt Bevin is winnable.
In Kentucky
against Mitch McConnell. And you take out Cochran and McConnell.
And Lindsey Graham. Who must go.
I mean,
just those three would make a huge difference.
Two of them would make a huge difference. So let's pay attention. And if you feel like that's something that you want to get on board with, it's McDaniel2014.com. Here's our sponsor this half hour. It's AMAC. And the reason why we have so many problems is because a lot of these organizations like AARP are part of the problem. That's why I really liked your question, Pat, to McDaniel when he was on. He's running for the Senate in Mississippi, and Pat's like, how do you get in and how do you stay clean?
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay clean?
I mean, it's easy to say, I'll just ignore them, but they're going to come to you and schmooze and promise, and
they'll do everything.
They'll do everything they can.
They will do absolutely everything.